Hello.
Where are you headed?
I'm heading downtown. Take a left here on Boone. Welcome to the King's Guide. I'm Chuck King, and on today's episode, we'll be driving the cable road. That is, the path of the 1889 Spokane Cable Railway, which carried passengers from 14th and McClellan through downtown and then out past the site of Nat Park, across the river to the Twickenham addition. Twickenham was close to the present-day campus of Spokane Falls Community College. Special thanks to Henry Johnson, who has volunteered to drive us along this historic road in his 1940 Packard 120 sedan. Henry is a member of Spokane's local Hassey Car Club.
What you're looking at is a 1940 Packard. It's a touring sedan. It's a model 120. This was designed specifically for touring the highways and the back roads of America.
The 120 was nicknamed the People's Packard when it launched in January of 1935. It was a luxury car with an affordable price tag, usually just a couple $100 more than a standard Chevy or Ford. The People's Packard helped save the Packard Company during the Depression when luxury car sales plummeted.
So this is the classic front end for Packard. I guess you could say that they took a little piece from Rolls-Royce, but they didn't make it a box. They made it kind of a wedge. They had several different hood ornaments that you could get. This happens to be the Flying Swan.
The Packard 120 was the first Packard model to be mass-produced on an assembly line, ending the company's reputation as a hand-built automobile brand like Rolls-Royce or Duesenberg. The car was an immediate success, selling for $200 cheaper than its nearest competitor, the LaSalle.
And then your trunk, and these had a pretty big space. You could get a person in there easily. And back in the day, I guess they probably did put somebody's in there. The Packards were used for general officer staff cars. So you would see them painted in a olive green or toned down paint. And they'd have a big star on the door. Patton had one at one point. Eisenhower had one.
All aboard!
A lot of beautiful old homes in the neighborhood here.
Yeah. Big ones.
That big one, yep. So we're going to be picking up Tom MacArthur up here at Doyle's and taking him on our trip. Tom MacArthur's great-grandfather, J.W. MacArthur, owned and operated a pharmacy on the Cable Road downtown, on the present-day site of the Fox Theater. The back door's unlocked, I take it?
Yep.
Okay, all right. In addition to being the great-grandson of an early Spokane pharmacist, Tom has a solid background in Spokane history, producing and writing several documentaries for KSPS, including one on Natatorium Park. Well, hello, Tom.
Hey, Chuck.
Yeah, get in.
With pleasure, sir.
All right.
Hi, Henry.
Hi, how we doing?
Excellent day.
Weren't waiting too long, were you?
Nope, not at all.
Right.
Any day in a Packard is better than ever.
There you go. Yep.
Ask the Packard driver.
All right.
This is a real treat.
Beautiful car.
Ain't it, though?
Oh, boy.
My little toy.
Louis Davenport preferred LaSalle automobiles, Henry, because they were big, fast, and had a large trunk.
Actually, I got a pretty good trunk in this Packard. You could fit in it.
What a great car for touring Spokane's historic cable railway line. Before we get too far along the tracks, though, let's talk more about cable cars. Are they trolleys, streetcars, trains? In a new segment called The King's Guide Vox Populi, we consulted the people of Spokane to see what ideas about cable cars are floating around more than a century after the cable cars were abandoned. So everyone, how does a cable car work?
I would guess a cable car would go along a cable.
Uh-huh.
There's rails in the ground and then there's like a thing attached to a wire. I don't know. That's how it looks in movies.
I'm listening.
A cable car works with the cables that are above the street. I don't know how it works other than that. Am I supposed to know that?
You put you have the car, and it has a little, it has wheels on the top of it.
It's on these lines and it's like that and it goes down on the lines.
Well, that's a different kind of cable car, often referred to as a tram or gondola, but excellent try. We're talking about cable cars that run along the street.
A cable car works By getting electricity from a cable that runs.
Not quite, and this is a common misconception. Most cable cars are mechanical, not electrical. Though the cable itself may be pulled by an electric motor, Spokane's cable cars were powered by a water wheel in the river, and not electricity.
Cable car. Is that... I'm trying to think of that. I think the cable yanks the car up the hill.
Now we're getting somewhere.
Oh, there's a cable underneath the street, and the car actually clamps to it, and then it pulls it around.
That's exactly right. Cable cars are pulled along their tracks by an underground cable that runs constantly at about 9 miles per hour. The grip attached to the cable car grabs the cable when the gripman wants the car to go, and then he lets go of the grip and applies the brake when he wants to stop. Spokane did have many electric trolley lines, that is, lines with electrified wires running above the streetcars. But the Spokane Cable Railway was Spokane's only cable car line, and it ran from late 1889 to July of 1894. So it would take about 25 minutes to take the complete ride.
I think we could do it a lot quicker today.
I think so, hopefully so. And the trolleys ran 7 minutes apart.
What we would give for light rail today.
Yeah. Yep. And just think, there was really nothing here. There was just a few homes. We asked Eastern Washington University history professor Dr. Larry Sabula to give us a sense of what Spokane was like at the time.
So when the trolleys are first established here in Spokane, they're going to the middle of nowhere. They're just going past the pine trees and perhaps a little bit of surveyor's tape or whatever they used at the time. The trolleys were closely associated with real estate and real estate speculation. So as people laid out trolley tracks, they also laid out neighborhoods, they established building covenants, they laid out lots, they began selling them. But at first the trolley it's just going through the middle of nowhere. It's going past the pine trees, and you have to wonder what an American Indian might have thought as they watched those go by.
Wonder if the neighborhood turned out the way they wanted it.
Following the Great Fire of 1889, Spokane began to change from a frontier town to a modern city.
The 1890s were a period of rapid transition in Spokane. Things were changing fast. The railroad had come in 1881. It was a town of 1,000 people. But by 1890, there's 20,000, and the number would double by 1900. So it's a period of rapid growth after the fire in particular. In 1889, the Great Fire of Spokane takes out really the whole entire downtown. But the rebuilding is remarkably fast. Spokane's going to be important, so there's a lot of external capital that comes into Spokane to not just rebuild it, but build it back better, as the phrase goes. There's things like the Auditorium Theater, there's elegant mansions going up along some certain parts of town, and there's houses popping up all along the South Hill. How are you going to get from those houses on the South Hill to downtown? Well, you could walk. I do that sometimes. It's fun walking down, and it's hard walking back up, particularly in the winter. In an era when transportation consisted of your feet or riding on a horse or in something pulled by a horse, the cable car was a revolutionary technology. We often think of the cable cars as serving neighborhoods, but it'd be more accurate to say the cable cars built the neighborhoods of Spokane.
If you notice, Chuck, in the old photographs, the trolley cars had no windshield wipers. So I asked an old trolleyman once why they didn't. He says, well, we didn't need them, because you'd take your chew and wipe it on the windshield, and it would never need wiping.
Ah, boy. Ooh.
Back when chew was a little more common.
Right. Yep.
I use Rain-X nowadays.
A little more civilized, I suppose. You have synchronized gears, Henry, or do you have to double clutch?
There's supposed to be synchronized.
Uh-huh.
My Plymouth did the same thing.
Yeah.
They just do.
That first gear doesn't like it.
Yep.
She whines a little bit every once in a while.
So that's the Jenkins building there. It's, David P. Jenkins, he had all this property along here. He gave the property for the courthouse. And like the courthouse, the Jenkins building was not yet constructed at the time of the Spokane Cable Railway line. The courthouse was completed in 1895, not long after the cable car lines were converted to electric trolley lines. And the Jenkins building was completed about 2 decades later in 1913. The Jenkins building was designed by Spokane architect Albert Held, who also designed many of Spokane's remarkable apartment buildings, including the Globe, the San Marco, and the Knickerbocker. On the next block sits the Holmes Block, one of the most distinctive buildings on North Monroe. The Holmes Block, also known as the Old Hill Apartments, was built in 1904, about a decade after the cable cars were discontinued. Across the street, people today are certainly familiar with the Golden Rule Brake Shop and their surly billboard messages. However, back in the 1890s, cable car passengers could stop at this address for fresh baked bread and pastries cooked up by the Minneapolis Bakery. And just about a block to the south of the bakery sits a Monroe Street Bridge, which is actually the third Monroe Street Bridge. The first one, which was made of wood, was built in partnership with the founders of the Spokane Cable Railway as part of the cable car line. The Monroe Street Bridge was one of 2 bridges built to get cable cars across the Spokane River.
Is this truly the third version of a Monroe Street Bridge, Chuck?
Yeah.
Third,
yeah,
okay.
Yeah, the first one was the wood one built by the cable car company. And a little after it was built, about a year, it burned. It was a wood bridge. And then it was replaced by a steel bridge, and then this is the concrete bridge, the third Monroe Street Bridge. There was a couple other bridges, but none of them had the view of the falls.
That's a piece of history I didn't know.
When the first Monroe Street Bridge burned, it created quite a crisis in Spokane, especially with the memory of the Great Fire so fresh in people's minds. Conspiracy theories about who might be to blame spread throughout the city. But in the end, it was the cable car line itself, specifically from friction caused by its continuously running cable. So Tom, your great-grandfather's pharmacy was right up here, right?
Yeah, we're almost there. Sprague and Monroe.
And he started that in what, 1889?
Right about then, the fire had just been cleaned up and things were getting back to normal. There was a newspaper columnist from back east who came out to check it all out. She described Spokane as a human anthill.
Wow. Yeah.
There was so much going on after the fire that it looked like a human anthill to her eyes.
Yep. Well,
so he was part of that.
The building went nuts right after the fire. Within days, they were cleaning it up and put up a ton of buildings in the first year or two, just rebuilt the whole place. So was it demolished then for the Fox Theater?
Yes. The Fox, of course, is an all-new building from the 30s, if I recall correctly.
Right.
But he moved into his new brick building either the winter of 89 or the spring of 1890.
So did he operate that until the Fox then?
No, he moved over to the Seattle area in the 1920s.
Okay.
But for the first couple of decades of the 20th century, he was a big man on campus selling drugs to the people of downtown Spokane. He was quite progressive in his day. He wanted it to be considered a profession to be a pharmacist and to have certified ingredients and guaranteed drugs and honest mixtures. So he was very deliberate in his recipes, and a lot of those survive today. So we know what he put in his bottles. Lots of cocaine, lots of chloroform, the good stuff.
And alcohol probably
too. Yeah. That's a good mixer in all kinds of ways.
Yeah. Made you feel pretty good quick.
But yeah, I got to think my great-grandpa walked these streets to and from work many, many days.
Yep. Wow.
There's his corner right there. Sprague and Monroe.
Right here.
MacArthur Drug.
Wow. Backtracking just a little bit, across the street and a block down from the MacArthur Pharmacy is one of the very few buildings downtown that was built at the time of the cable car line. And that's the historic Review Tower and the offices of one of the nation's few remaining family-owned newspapers, the Spokesman Review. A lengthy story in the October 25th, 1891 Spokane Review announced the completion of the Review Tower with great fanfare, calling it a modern structure with every convenience. No doubt, the people of Spokane looked to the finished Review Tower as a sign of good things to come in Spokane. Just south from the Review Tower stands the Montvale Hotel, which according to its historic nomination form was built in 1899. Hotels like the Montvale were key components of Spokane's early founding. Such hotels were SRO operations, or single-room occupancy hotels, built mainly for itinerant workers and newcomers to town.
There are hundreds of these in Spokane by this time period, and they're very simple. There's a room, there's a bed, there might be a sink in the corner if you're in kind of a fancy one. There's a bathroom down the hall.
At any given time from November to February in Spokane, there could be as many as 50,000 single men out of work waiting for spring.
There is a great need for labor at certain times of the year, but the winter was slow. So you come back to town with all the money you hopefully saved, you pay for your SRO a few months in advance, and then you find your favorite cafe and you buy what's called a meal ticket. It's basically a voucher for getting 2 meals a day, 3 meals a day, depending on how much you spend at a given restaurant.
Here at the railroad tracks, the Spokane Cable Railway split in two, mainly to avoid rail collisions back when the railway tracks were on the ground. Cable car passengers would need to exit the car and cross the rails of the Northern Pacific by foot and then board a cable car on the other side to continue their journey. From here, the cable cars headed for the steep grade of the South Hill. That was quite a climb for these cable cars, going up in the 1880s, 90s.
I can imagine what the winters would be like.
Oh boy,
in that car.
yeah. Yeah, it's no wonder they didn't sell much property up on the hill here. The Cable Addition neighborhood extended from 14th Avenue to 21st and covered about 25 blocks. It was named for the cable cars that the Spokane Cable Railway Company believed would bring successful development to Spokane's South Hill. But the area didn't catch on as quickly as they had hoped. This was a long way out of town to sell property. You know, they put a lot of money into this to bring people out. And the Twickenham one didn't really sell at all. I mean, the development ended up being Fort George Wright and SFCC. So kind of flopped on them. But the cable cars were kind of done anyway. Electricity was coming along. The Ross Park Railway was electrified within months after the cable, so it was already seen as kind of antique.
They've got some really big houses up here. These are nice.
Yeah, most of these were built later than the cable car, but eventually they got built. So we're here at this is 14th and McClellan right here. This is where the cable road ended. This actually used to be Packard right here. So the name was changed, but so kind of a coincidence.
They were driving a Packard.
Yeah, we didn't know that until after.
Destiny.
Yeah, until we had talked to you. Pretty crazy to think that a cable underground ran all these miles between basically what was Nat Park up here to 14th and Bernard.
And none of these homes were here.
And nothing was here. And now we're heading back through town to the other end of the cable car line, back to the West Central neighborhood and the site of the old Nat Park. Because of one-way streets, today we can't actually drive the cable car route to the north from the South Hill. So we'll head through town and join back up with the cable road at the Monroe Street Bridge, and then head back to Boone, where we can see one house that was actually built before the cable railway began operating. There is one house up here that was actually here when the cable railway was going past it. A guy named Fred Flint, not Fred Flintstone. Good thing the cartoon wasn't around when he was, because he probably would have taken a bunch of flack for that. But he owned the Norland Hotel downtown. Kind of a smaller home, same type of deal. They built this line out to almost nowhere and sold a few homes.
So how long has Doyle's Ice Cream been here?
Well, the building was built in 1928, but became Doyle's in 1939.
The year before this car was.
Well, there you go. There you go. Perfect. That's Fred Flint's house right there.
The yellow one there?
Yeah, the yellow one there, yep. And you'll notice it wasn't built of stone. Otherwise, it would have been Fred Flint's stone.
Just don't take it for granted.
Just don't take it for granted. There you go. Perfect. Here, near the end of the cable road, is the historic Charles and Elsie Thomas House at the corner of Boone and Summit Boulevard. The Thomas House was built over a decade after the cable line was converted to electric. Dr. Charles Thomas practiced medicine at St. Luke's Hospital just around the bend from here. The present-day owner of the Thomas House, Kevin Heckmet Pana, just happened to be home and offered to chat with us about his house. Please note, all of the homes we've shown you on this route are private residences, and they're not currently open to the public.
My name is Kevin Heckmet Pana. I bought this house in 2006. It was made by the famed architect Kirtland Cutter.
The Thomas House was completed in 1907 as part of the Sherwood Edition. John Sherwood, for whom the Sherwood Addition housing development was named, actually built the Spokane Cable Railway line with a group of other investors. Sherwood was also among the founders of the Washington Water Power Company, known today as Avista Utilities.
The house has had kind of a sordid past, shall we say. Reportedly, it was a brothel for a little while, but a very high-end brothel, not just, like the low-level brothel. And for about 30 years, there was a naturopath named Otis Carroll who lived there, and he used it as his hospital and his residence. So he had some unconventional methods of treating people, alternating hot and cold water with electric shock. And then after that, it became what's called the Grotto Home. And it was for children with cerebral palsy. So there were about 20 kids in the beds that lived here. It was supposedly a halfway house, and then it was a home for wards of the state, and now it's my home.
After being owned by so many different people who were using the home for so many different purposes, the Thomas house was in need of some intense remodeling.
Well, when I bought the house, it had kind of fallen in disarray. So instead of just trying to do a little bit of fixing here and a little there, I completely gutted it and really tried to retain the natural beauty of it and bring out the historic quality. But, I don't want to live in a museum. It's got to be, a livable home. So, kitchens and bathrooms have to be kind of up to date. It's been about 13 years, and hopefully another 20 years from now, I'll be halfway done.
Probably wasn't cheap either.
I bet you that house was probably $30,000 back in the day.
Yeah,
maybe.
Actually,
that.
It was $30,000.
Wow.
Look at that right there. Yeah. The interior of the home is as grand as its exterior, especially the living room. According to the historic nomination paperwork for the home, a focal point of the living room is a wide arch spandrel. Wait, what's a spandrel? And the spandrel frames an inglenook. What the heck is an inglenook? We went back to the people of Spokane to help us understand some of the strange architectural vocabulary from the past. So what's an inglenook?
I have no idea.
An inglenook.
An inglenook is the very small hole where you put your ingles.
No, nice try.
I don't know. A creek?
Some people believe it's a town in Spain, but actually it's we have several of them in our house. There are these little nookie areas in our house where we keep our ingles.
A common guess, it seems.
Oh, that's a great one. These are actually back scratchers from the Victorian era.
Inglenook? Duh. Inglenook is a bird with a weird curved beak. It goes like 360 degrees and then points straight out again.
Very creative, guys, but no.
What is a winery in California?
Oh, that is a winery.
Inglenook Wines?
Maybe?
I do not know. I think it sounds like an architectural feature.
Inglenooks are the benches that are placed on either side of a fireplace in a little nook.
Yeah, that's basically it. An inglenook is a fireplace nook. It could have benches or it could have shelves. What about a spandrel? What's a spandrel?
Oh, a spandrel is
Well, I think that now we're just making up words.
Oh, a spandrel is a...
No idea.
What is it? Span girl?
I have no idea.
Can you use spandrel in a sentence?
No.
Sounds like a mandrel. So maybe it's some type of tool.
I can't do my work because I forgot my spandrel.
There you go.
My spandrel's loose.
It's going to cost $300 to replace the spandrel.
Spandrel is actually Spanx. In the early 1920s, they had frills on them.
Wow, getting pretty deep in here.
Oh, I know this from Sims. I think it's attached to like a pillar thing and it goes across a building and it has fancy designs on the front of it. It's like a beam almost. It holds things up inside of a building. I don't know. I think that's what it is.
Yeah, that's correct. Inside the Thomas House, according to the historic nomination form, the widely arched spandrel is supported by 2 large Tuscan-style fumed oak columns and frames the entrance to the fireplace and inglenook. The fireplace surround is made of molded smooth-faced concrete with egg and dart border detailing, floral patterned rosettes in the corners. That's a mouthful. What a beautiful room. Kevin and his wife hope to one day host concerts at their home, in part so that their home can be enjoyed by the Spokane community.
I'm a musician, my wife is a musician, and so my natural thought was I'd love to have this place open up to do recitals and concerts and really bring the public in. It's such a magnificent space for entertaining. I designed a lot of the spaces with music in mind.
What a beautiful home and an outstanding project. Special thanks to Kevin and his wife for letting us take a peek at their historic home here on the Cable Road. So now we're going to go down to where the second bridge was. Now this was a 2-level bridge. So they had the trolleys were up on the upper deck and then regular traffic underneath. So the bridge went at an angle right here. It was washed out in 1894, but that was what a huge undertaking to make a double-decker bridge for the trolley to sell property on the other side. That's where Twickenham was across there. Natatorium Park, or Nat Park, started as Twickenham Park. As a trolley park, it was designed to be a destination to increase ridership and to increase the real estate value of the surrounding neighborhoods. Early Spokane crowds were treated to a baseball diamond, a zoo, and in 1893 a natatorium, or heated swimming pool. Tom, you've been down here quite a bit.
Yeah, I never saw Nat Park when it was alive, so to speak, but I've sure talked to a lot of people who gosh, you mentioned Nat Park, and they're right back there.
Right.
Talked to an old-timer who was here the opening weekend of the Jackrabbit roller coaster in 1920.
Wow.
And she was a young girl at the time and still remembered her ride. You know, that she went almost out over the river and up and down, and it threw you around, and she remembered the sign at the beginning of the ride that said, hold your hat, don't stand up. Back when most people did wear a hat.
No safety belts either.
No, it was a pretty primitive ride.
Yeah.
There are no seat belts in this car.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. They're beautiful. Get some shots of us looking at it.
What color do they call it? When you get up real close, you can see the detail of the seahorse.
Yeah, isn't that beautiful? I'd seen that a few years ago. But, yeah.
Why would they? The enormous natatorium that was built in the 1900s is still there.
Mm-hmm.
They tried to blow it up, but it was so well reinforced with rebar and extra accoutrements to the concrete mix that they couldn't blow it up. And so they just bulldozed it over, and it's all still there. The pumps, the pipes, everything is all still underground. Yeah, this is the staircase that I was thinking.
It was, okay, gotcha.
That has leftover railroad track to scale as handrails.
Oh, okay, gotcha, right, yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Wow.
Okay, yeah, cool.
Yeah, this is just old, of course, scaled down because the ride was a lot smaller than real size. But this was part of the railroad track. And it must have been the right decision because it's still here.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. It's definitely strong.
So you have to think, you know, the kids that were playing hooky from school would come down here on a whim and come down these stairs and ride the train and have a couple of hot dogs and spend the day at Nat Park.
Yeah.
You can see the bolts in the concrete here. And this is where the switching lamp was for the train.
Oh,
so it would come by, trigger the switch, and then it would close a gate across here, so you didn't step out in front of the train. And it would ding and blink and blink and ding, and then when the train went by, gates went up, and you could walk back into the park.
Okay.
And that's where that control light was.
Right, okay.
You could say, Chuck, that this episode is right on track.
There you go.
You've been doing that the whole episode.
Don't confess anything.
Hey.
Don't confess anything.
That's not good. Uh-huh. That's... Uh-huh.
Come on, let's go. Let's choo 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 choo.
Let me think on this one.
Okay. You're like, wow, getting pretty deep in here.
Go for it.
Wow, getting pretty deep in here. Oh, it's gonna be.
Hey there, fellow. Soon we'll be in Pocatello.
Yeah, that's right there, yeah.
Ensign Valley. Caught into my Rand McNally. Tell the folks back home in Shy. Tell them toodaloo goodbye. And let's choo 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 choo
There you go.
to Idaho. What a trip, it's terrific on Union Pacific. What a change from that covered wagon day. If those old 49ers had those up-to-date streamliners, they'd commute clear from Butte to Iowa. Hey there, Porter, when we pass Nebraska's border, lay my suits out, get my spurs and western boots out. If I'm going west today, might as well go all the way. Yip yip, hi-ho, let's choo 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 to Idaho. Come on, let's go, let's choo 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 to Idaho. Let's choo 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 choo.